Hello, I am Pastor Mark, back with you again. To all my church family at Desert Foothills and our preschool families. I'm glad that you can see and hear me and our other church staff and church leaders, but we really miss being able to see you. And of course, to those of you just kind of checking this out, thanks for listening in. Our verse for today's devotion is Psalm 46, verse 10. Be still and know that I am God. I actually want to start a series of devotions that will help you grow closer to God. These are tried and true practices used for thousands of years and that anyone can do. Most Christians are struggling spiritually, especially when it comes to spending time with God. And you may be one of them. If so, it might help you to know that the struggle is real and you are far from alone. This is a global spiritual crisis. As a pastor, I've encountered this struggle in people in every corner of the church, from members to church workers, pastors, denominational leaders, and even myself at times. To sum up the spiritual condition of many believers today, I see several things. Busy, struggling to stop our life on the run, scattered, fragmented, and uncentered, living off of other people's spirituality. I see people who are tired, physically, spiritually, and emotionally tired, and then praying and communing with God very little. The bottom line, too many of us have a relationship with Jesus that is underdeveloped. We talk to God, or even sometimes we talk at God, but we don't actually listen to him very much. What if I told you that there is a way to live a relaxed, unhurried, content life in Jesus amidst the pressures and the difficulties of life? Here's a way to remain thoughtful when triggered in conversation, and then to be able to listen for the God's voice. There is a way to give our lives in the service to others without becoming chronically exhausted. How, you ask? The answer is intentionally rearranging our days to integrate the Christian practice of being still and silent in God's presence. I'm going to share with you an ancient and at the same time a revolutionary spiritual discipline, the daily office. The daily office provides a structure, a very structured way of spending time with God each day. But now listen, it differs from what we think of as a devotion or maybe quiet time, which normally takes place once a day, usually in the morning, and focuses on kind of getting filled up for the day or even praying for the needs of others. The daily office takes place at least twice a day, and it's not so much about turning to God to get something as it is turning to God to simply be with him. The goal of the daily office is to pay attention to God throughout the entire day and in the midst of our activities. This is the great challenge for all of us. The enormous pressure of the world and our stubborn self-will make it extraordinarily difficult to sustain any awareness of God's presence as we go through the day. Well, the word office comes from the Latin word opus, or work. For the early church, the daily office, praying at fixed times throughout the day, was always the first work of God to be done. Nothing was to interfere with that priority. This practice actually predated the early church by at least 1,000 years. We read in Psalm 119, 164, David says, 7 times a day I praise you for your righteous laws. The prophet Daniel in chapter 6, verse 10. 3 times a day he got down on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to his God. Devout Jews in Jesus' time prayed at morning, afternoon, and evening, They saw it as a very practical way to keep their lives centered on loving God at all times. Even after the resurrection, Jesus' disciples continued to pray at certain hours of the day. Read Acts chapter 3, verse 1. One day, Peter and John were going up to the temple at the time of prayer at 3 in the afternoon. And also you can read Acts chapter 10, verse 2 to 23 if you want. But all of these people, through all of these centuries, realized that stopping to be with God by means of the daily office was the key to creating a continual familiarity with God's presence as they get into the hustle and bustle of life. Routinely setting aside small units of time for morning, midday, or evening prayer infuses the activities of our day with a deep awareness of the sacred. Now, tomorrow I'll have some specific things that we can do, kind of structure some of our devotion time. But just start today by deciding what times you will set aside to be with God. And I would encourage you either morning and midday, or maybe midday and evening, or all three. And God bless you as you go to the Lord and try to put some structure in your life to be with Him constantly and consistently. I'll leave you again with this verse that just speaks to me in these times, Romans 12:12. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, and constant in prayer. God bless you.